back here at the garage and I'm gonna be doing some testing because I did changes. If you saw my Instagram post last night, I simplified my build, took off rear carbon, took off a lot of stuff. So went back to a rigid front end. I want this thing to be fast and stay in. So this is test number 1. Perfect. I'm so happy. This is such a fire. You almost caught it. Yay. So it stays in, it's consistent, and that's what I want. A fast, consistent car, because there's no point in building this open category if your car is not consistent, it's not fast, and obviously it doesn't look good. If it doesn't look good, it's not cool. So I think this is looking pretty fire. Anyways, simplified the setup. I went back to a rigid front end because with that front end I had, it was just too loose. I wasn't making the lane change. And then for the rear end, I simplified it to the point where it doesn't have the posts. It is pretty much a similar setup to this guy. And the way I did it with that, excuse me, I can't talk today. I don't know what's up with me. I'm sorry. This is my second time trying to make this clip too. Anyways, I just went with a different spacing setup for the springs to be held in place. So when it does hit the side of the track and gyrate, it goes back to being in its neutral position. And I'll get into detail on like the parts I use other than the springs to get this setup working properly, because not many people can get the dual spring setup working right. Usually everyone's going with the single spring setup, and you know, I love it. It looks great. It's more cutting and stuff than I really want to do. But yeah, we'll get back to you with possibly a breakdown of my open car's rear end and show you what spacers I use to get this rear end working so well. Alright, so we're back. At least I'm back here at my house, ready to explain to you guys the dual spring rear setup that I do that I've done at least to 2 of my cars, and it's very consistent. So here we go. We're gonna start off with showing you what you're gonna need to get this setup going pretty much. It's very simplistic to the point where you could get these parts readily available. You're gonna be wanting 2 lock nuts. Okay. There goes 1 and 2. I would say get also a couple of, I would say 4 of the washers, or I guess you could call them eyelets, that when you buy rollers, they come with them. They're kind of silver. I'm using bronze ones. Doesn't really matter what color they are as long as they're eyelets. I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second here once I get all this apart. And then I would say get yourself, if you can't get those eyelets, these guys right here. Let's see if I could get this all. Let's see to my light. How about that? Yeah, it changes color. Hey, there you go. But yeah, pretty much not going to be showing very easily, but they look like so. They got like a little nipple on them. Yeah. Anyways, I am using 2 of these guys for. Okay, so basically I bolt down 2 screws to the brake plate. Come on, get on off. There you go. Yeah. Sometimes parts don't want to, work with you, and you just have to talk to them. If I'm weird, y'all, just comment below. I'm weird. It is what it is. Anyways, for the rear, my secret to this is when you put these 2 long screws and you bolt them, obviously you're going to countersink the bottom plate. When you bolt them in, I'm using the regular nuts, and before I put the regular nuts, I put the little washer that is uneven. Basically, it's a locking washer. Put that, then the nut, it locks it down nicely. And then for this rear end to articulate correctly, let's change some light here. I bent these 2 screws that the rear end will be sitting on. I bent them. So basically, like on a regular car, individual suspension, when a car does have individual suspension, it works and it moves inward and outward like this, kind of like a boat rocking. So for that motion in the ocean to happen, you kind of need to bend these screws inwards. So the top of the screws will be closer to each other, but you want to leave the bottom of the screws in the same position. So basically the top is pinched in, the bottom same diameter. Major point on that is so you have limitation to the rear end, because you're not going to be running any rubber rings, nothing to keep it from articulating way too much. And you're also doing this so it can articulate smoothly, because remember, this rear end is going to be going like this. It's not going to be going straight up and down. It's going to be going up, down, left and right, kind of like this. It's going to have a pivot point. Maybe at some time it is going to go up, straight, but it's only going to go up straight so little, and you're never going to really hit both ends at the same time for it to go up straight. So it's going to be going left and right. Yes, I just dropped my rear end. All right. Anyways, so for it to do so, you need to bend the screws, as I said, and then so you won't be wearing out your whatever material you're going to use, the carbon fiber stay or FRP. I always do these inserts. You get these little inserts from your stock block cars. They're the brass inserts that go into your rollers. They're great for a lot of things if you're looking to make parts maneuver and not wear out. So because they're made out of brass, they're easy to sand down and cut away after. So when you're done putting your insert in, you're gonna have to drill the hole out a little bit at first, just a little bit. I then press it in with a plier. Yeah, I guess I use pliers. I just kind of press down, center it like so, press down, push it in, feel until where it stops, and then I look And I'm like, okay, it's receding out, you know, half a millimeter, whatever, and then, you know, you see the excess sticking out. Get some sandpaper, sand that guy off, and then you got yourself a nice insert so your screws can manipulate on and won't damage your carbon. So then when you're done doing that to your FRP or carbon fiber piece, and you have your bolts, your main mounting points all together, if you do not have extras of those bearing nipple things that I was telling you about, these ones are copper. The original Tamiya ones are silver. If you don't have extra of those, you can just use regular washers that come again in your stock Tamiya kits. These guys, they're simple to come by. You put one on each side. These are just going to be acting as a little bit of a stabilizer for the plate itself, because you're not going to have much supporting it other than 2 lock nuts and what you are going to be putting on. So then when you're going to be installing this part, the FRP or your FRP or carbon fiber piece, and like I said, you had to squish those 2 top pieces or of the screws together to make the posts pretty much like a suspension to gyrate. Well, they're not going to line up because obviously these holes are at a certain diameter and now these are a little bit more in. That's perfectly fine. You can put one side in, stretch the other side a little bit, and you get it in like that, and now it's kind of stuck, right? Just push down, it'll slide in. These still stay in their bent position where you wanted them. And then next piece to the puzzle is another washer. One, a 2, then the spring, and then another washer. And again, these washers I'm using are the nipple style that go on the bearings for your rollers. But if you can't get them, then you can go and get yourself just regular old silver washers. They work just as good and do the job just fine. I just do it with these because the little nipples that these washers have keep the spring seated and centered for when the rear bumper starts to articulate and move around. So I just preferably like these, and they're copper, so they go with some spacers that I'm running and the rest of the yellow on the car. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the rear setup. And overall, my MS is pretty much done. I'm really happy with it. It's consistent and looking quite fire, just like Riddler would. Anyways, I hope you guys like this. We're gonna be cutting to a little clip, and it's gonna be a fun one, so see you in a minute. Hey! Just wanted to do a little extra video for y'all. That was with the lights off and this little LED light on. So hopefully you guys thought that was cool. Please subscribe, watch, comment, whatever. Laters.